Hello everyone. In this video we're going to be talking about the y-intercepts of polynomials, but we're also going to be practicing more with the touching and crossing thing. So let's start out with the touching and crossing. Okay, so we're going to have two intercepts here. One is two x-intercepts. One is going to be at x equals -2, and the other one is going to be at x equals 1. So let's look at x equals -2 first. And I can see that on x plus 2, I have, and let me try to keep my highlighting the same. We have a multiplicity of 2. Since that is an even number, that means we're going to touch/bounce on the x-axis. So at x equals 2, at x equals -2, there is going to be a touch. Okay, and then at x equals 1, this actually has a degree of 1 here. It has an exponent of 1. It's not 0. If it was 0, then that just wouldn't be there at all. So since it has a degree of 1, that means our multiplicity is 1. And since 1 is odd, that means we're going to cross. So at x equals 1, it's going to cross. Okay, so here is what this function is going to look like. If we were graphing it. And let's just actually find our y-intercept first. So there's the touching and crossing, and let's just do the touching and crossing for the second one now. So for the second one, we're going to have at x equals -1, and at x equals -1, we have a multiplicity of 2, and since 2 is an even number, then we're going to touch for that one, or bounce. We can write bounce here. And then at x equals, we'll make that 0 is 2, we are going to cross because we have an odd number there. Okay, so now let's move on to our intercepts, our y-intercepts. Okay, and all that we're going to do for our y-intercepts is we're going to take every single number that we see with its exponent up there, and we're going to multiply it all together. So here I see a 3. I also see a plus 2 squared, and I see a minus 1 to the first power. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to rewrite this, and the y-intercept is going to be 3 times positive 2 squared times -1 to the first. Of course, you can do this in your head. 2 squared is 4, so we have 3 times 4, that's 12. And then 12 times -1 is going to be -12. But what you can do instead is just go to Desmos and type that in and see what it gives you. 3, 2 squared times -1 squared. Oops. There we go. And you're going to get, or sorry, it wasn't squared, it was to the first power. You're going to get -12 there. Okay, so let's come back. And the y-intercept is going to be at -12. So what we're looking at here, as far as the graph goes, is we're going to have a graph that at x equals -2, it's going to touch. At x equals 1, it's going to cross. And then it's going to have a y-intercept of -12. Okay, so we're going to touch here and cross here. So let's touch, and then we're going to cross like this. I also wanted to go through the y-intercept of -12 there. Okay, so let's go see in Desmos and see if this kind of matches up with our graph. So we have 3 times x plus 2 squared times x minus 1 to the first. Okay, and we can see that this does match our graph. It's touching at -2, it's crossing at 1, and then all the way down at -12 is where the y-intercept is. So this does match up with our features. Okay, so let's go try the second one now. We're going to look at the y-intercept. And the y-intercept, again, is just going to be all the numbers that you see. 2 times 1 squared times -2 to the third. So we're going to have 2 times 1 squared times -2 to the third. Again, of course, we could do this in our head if we wanted to, but let's just go type it into Desmos. 2 times -1 squared times -2 to the third. And that was +1. There we go. Okay, so this is going to give us +8, and this was not squared. It was to the third. Okay, there we go. So this is going to give us -16. All right, -16. So let's go back. All right, that's going to be at -16. All right, and now we can kind of sketch our graph here. All right, so this graph is going to go through -1 and +2. Okay, at -1, it's going to bounce, and then at 2, it's going to cross. So we are going to also go through -16 on the y-axis. We're going to bounce at -1, cross at -16, or sorry, go to -16 and then cross at 2. So this is what our function should look like approximately. So let's go to Desmos, and here is our function. 2 times x plus 1 squared times x minus 2 to the third. Okay, and you can see it's bouncing at -1, it's crossing at 2, and it is going through the y-intercept at -16. Okay, so this all checks out, and that is all that we're going to do for this section. Please stay tuned for the next one where, given the graph, we write the equation. Goodbye.